I can still see the way her mouth tightened when she said it, like she was putting a lid on a pot that had been simmering all day. Please, at dinner tonight, just stay quiet. My family's already keyed up about a million things. I don't need extra. She didn't say, I don't need you, but my ears caught it anyway. I nodded, because nodding had become a habit lately, the way you might tap the brakes when the road looks slick. It's funny how quiet can sound like a kindness and a muzzle at the same time. We were getting dressed in our room, sunlight square across the bedspread. The good shirt I wear for her parents laid out like a flag I kept saluting even after the parade ended. She was fixing one of those tiny earrings that require patience I've never had. I watched her in the mirror, and I thought of the way we used to look at each other, like we were both about to laugh. Now we were co-workers passing in a hallway, polite and distant. Some of that was on me. I'd gotten absorbed in my job this year. Late nights, missed concerts. I forgot that showing up is a love language too. Her dad never fully warmed to me. He's a good man, steady and serious, but he sees the world in columns, debits and credits. I show up with a different kind of math, more feelings than figures. Her mom is an arranger of flowers and conversations. She likes a table to feel like a garden. The siblings, 2 brothers and a sister, are a chorus that harmonizes and heckles. And then there's me, the guest who became family and is now somewhere in between, like a chair they aren't sure to put at the table or back in the garage. The thing about the voice memo from last night is I didn't mean to have a voice memo at all. My phone had this setting where any time I raised it near my face, the Note app thought I had something essential to say. Usually it caught grocery lists or reminders to send a birthday text. Last night it caught me sleeping on the couch because we'd argued. It also caught her on the phone in the kitchen, speaking low. At first I thought she was practicing a work presentation. She has that tone when she's in charge, a warm authority. But the words didn't stack right for work. They stacked like footprints heading out the door. I didn't press play again for a long stretch. I made tea and burned my tongue because I wasn't looking. I walked around the block at midnight like I was trying to memorize the map of my neighborhood, as if the route of my feet could tell me what to do next. When I came back, I listened with headphones because the house felt suddenly too thin. I recognized a laugh I had known for years because I'd earned it. Only this time it wasn't mine that pulled it out of her. There was a hush in her voice I hadn't heard since our first months together. That soft, careful hush reserved for thrilling secrets or fragile things. This next part is where I want to say I handled it with grace. I didn't. I paced. I said a few sentences to no one that sounded brave alone and small as soon as they hit the air. I thought about waking her, about putting the phone on the pillow between us and letting the night finish the conversation for me. But I remembered something my dad told me when his own marriage cracked. There's an anger that breaks the window, and there's an anger that installs a door. He meant, don't just make a mess. Make a way through. Morning came, and we were brittle and polite. She moved around me in the kitchen, as if we were both guarding the last good plate. Are you ready for tonight? She asked. The phrase had always meant casual fun. Now it sounded like a test. Yeah, I said. I'll be quiet. She didn't thank me, but her shoulders relaxed a degree. I saw relief. It landed on me like a blanket I didn't ask for, heavy and warm. On the drive to her parents' house, the sun flashed through the trees like a strobe, turning the road into a long flicker. She hummed along to a song we used to sing together. I couldn't find my part. I kept my hands at 10 and 2, like a teenager on a test. In my pocket, the phone was a small, solid heat. Not a weapon, not a tool, just a truth I was carrying, like a coin I couldn't spend yet. At the door, her mom hugged me too hard, like she was worried I might break. You look tired, she whispered, motherly code for you look like you haven't been eating. Her dad shook my hand, as if the grip could measure what kind of man I was today. The siblings were already arguing about something silly, sports, or a bakery closing early, and it cheered me more than I expected. Noise felt safer than silence. I told myself I would get through this meal like crossing a frozen pond. Slow, steady, eyes forward. We sat. The table was set beautifully. Linen napkins, the good plates with the tiny blue vines. A candle that smelled faintly of pine even though it was spring. Her mom asked me to carve the roast, which was sweet because it meant trust, or at least choreography. I did it carefully, the knife finding the grain, and I took quiet pride in the clean slices. She watched me from the other end and offered a small smile as if to say, see, this can still work. Then, Just as water glasses settled and the first stories began, she reached under the table and touched my knee. It wasn't affectionate. It was a reminder. Her eyes said, "Please, I don't need you to fix anything. I just need you to not break it more." I nodded, and for a beat my chest ached with the wish to be the man who could give her that. I've learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse the version of yourself they're asking for. Not to hurt them. To stop pretending in a way that keeps both of you small. I don't know if that's wisdom or rationalization. I just know that the room felt like a set we had rehearsed a dozen times, and my lines no longer fit in my mouth. "Everyone okay with sparkling or still?" her brother asked, lifting bottles like a bartender. "Still for me," I said. My voice sounded normal, which felt like a tiny miracle. I looked at my wife. She was laughing at a joke her dad made about the dog and the mailman. It was a lovely, ordinary moment, the kind I'd taken for granted. My phone buzzed once, just a calendar alert I'd forgotten to clear. I slipped a hand into my pocket and felt the edges of the device, rectangle and unforgiving. I had decided, while walking loops around our block in the dark, what quiet would mean tonight. Not arguing, not accusing, just holding up a mirror and letting whoever looked see what they saw. When her mom asked who wanted bread, I cleared my throat. "I have something I need to." I stopped. I remembered her request. I thought about the door, not the window. "Actually," I said softly, "I'll stay quiet." And I laid the phone, face down, by my plate, the small weight of it changing the balance of the silverware like a secret placed carefully on a scale, waiting. The meal moved along like any other family dinner. Light chatter, forks against porcelain, the hum of voices mixing with the clink of glasses. But my mind wasn't in that dining room. It was pacing somewhere between last night's discovery and the weight in my pocket. I kept replaying her voice, the tenderness in it, the playful whispers meant for someone else. I glanced at her from time to time. She was animated, telling her sister a story about a vacation we took years ago, and she got the details wrong. Not on purpose, just the way people do when they've half forgotten what mattered. I remembered the smell of sunscreen, the cheap cocktails, the way we stayed up too late watching the tide come in. She remembered the poolside breakfasts. That's how I knew she'd been gone from us for longer than I'd admitted. Her dad was mid-sentence about the price of lumber when I slipped my phone onto my knee under the table and tapped the screen awake. My thumb hovered over the recording. The rational part of me said, "Not here, not now." But another part, the one that had been eating itself alive in silence, said, "You promised her quiet. This is quiet. Just not the kind she imagined." I tapped play. At first, it was just background noise, my living room clock ticking faintly, the sound of her moving around the kitchen. She was laughing softly, then came the voice I didn't recognize until last night. Low, male, and too familiar with her. The conversation was indistinct at first, just warmth and flirtation. Then it sharpened. From across the table, her mom leaned in. "What's that sound?" Her dad frowned, pausing his story. "What was that?" I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on the roast in front of me and said, evenly, "Just a voice memo from last night." The words fell into the room like a pebble into still water, small, but the ripples spread fast. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. Her brothers exchanged a glance. The audio kept playing, their voices threading between the clinks of cutlery and the silence of everyone listening too closely. Her hand shot under the table to grab my knee again, this time with pressure. "Turn it off," she whispered, her breath sharp and urgent. I took a slow sip of water. "It's on my phone. Easy to stop. You want to explain it first?" Her face flushed a color I'd never seen on her before, a mix of anger and fear. "This is not the place," she hissed. "That's what you said about the truth a year ago," I replied quietly. Her dad's eyes moved between us like he was reading subtitles in a foreign film. "Is there something we should know?" he asked, voice steady but weighted. The memo kept going. A chair scraped against tile somewhere in the background of the recording, followed by a line I'll never forget. "I wish you were here instead of him." It was his voice. And then hers, soft, almost breaking. "Me too." The table went dead silent. No one touched their food. Even the candles seemed to stop flickering. She reached for the phone, but I pulled it back, setting its screen down beside my plate. "That's enough for now," I said, though it wasn't. Not for me. Not for any of us. Her sister's fork clinked against her plate. "Wow," she muttered under her breath. Her dad's voice was quieter now. I think we should take a moment, he said. But he was looking at me, not her. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like the man who had to tiptoe around her moods. I felt like someone who had finally stepped on his solid ground, even if it was about to split beneath all of us. And as I sat there, the phone still warm beside me, I realized that silence isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of truth no one knows how to answer. She pushed her chair back so abruptly that one of the wine glasses toppled, a red bloom spreading across the linen. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice breaking in the middle of the word. "You're twisting something innocent." Her mom started dabbing at the spill, more to have something to do than to clean it up. Her dad stayed perfectly still, the kind of stillness that comes before a storm. "Innocent?" he asked, his eyes locked on her. I didn't speak. I wanted her words to hang there, naked, with no rescue coming. She glanced at me, searching for a lifeline. I kept my face neutral, the same way I had when I first heard that recording. It wasn't revenge driving me. It was a need for the truth to exist outside my own head. For months, I'd been carrying it alone, and now it was in the air between all of us, undeniable. Her brother cleared his throat. "So, that wasn't your voice in the recording, obviously," he said, his tone half accusation, half confusion. She stood, clutching her napkin. "I'm not doing this here." Her dad's voice sharpened. "Then where?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you've been asking him to stay quiet while you—" He stopped himself, glancing toward her mom. "While you live in another world entirely." She looked like she wanted to run, but pride kept her in the room. "It's complicated," she muttered. "No," I said quietly. "It's actually pretty simple." She turned to me then, a last flicker of defiance in her eyes. "You think you've embarrassed me, but all you've done is make yourself look bitter." I held her gaze. "If I wanted to embarrass you, I'd have played the whole thing." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it was complete. Everyone at that table knew something had shifted beyond repair. The roast cooled on our plates. The candle burned lower. My phone sat between us like a stone no one wanted to touch. Finally, I stood. "Thank you for dinner," I said, directing it to her mom. It was lovely. My voice was steady, almost too calm for the weight of what had just happened. I left my plate half full and walked out, feeling every pair of eyes on my back. In the hallway, I heard her dad's voice, low, disappointed, beginning a conversation I didn't need to stay for. The night air hit me like a clean slate. I didn't have a plan beyond this moment. I just knew I couldn't go back in there and pretend we were still the people we once were. I got in the car and sat for a long time without starting it, watching the lights from the dining room flicker in the window. That recording would stay on my phone for now, not as ammunition, but as a reminder of how far we drifted, of the line she'd crossed, of the quiet I'd kept for too long. Some endings arrive with shouting and slammed doors. Ours came with the clink of cutlery stopping midair and the truth finally breathing in the open. And as I drove away, I realized I hadn't just kept my promise to stay quiet. I'd redefined it. Quiet wasn't obedience anymore. Quiet was freedom.